Welcome to NYNJPA Weather, your weather source for the Northern Mid-Atlantic. I'm meteorologist Stephen DiMartino. After the windy conditions yesterday that produced wind gusts over 40 miles per hour over many locations, the weather conditions today are far more tranquil. Unfortunately, we still have a few disturbances in the area that are producing some cloud cover and some scattered showers, but overall, the precipitation is relatively light, most locations will remain dry, and the winds will continue to weaken, remaining below 5 to 10 miles per hour through this evening and into the overnight hours. So overall, we're heading into a far more tranquil weather condition setup. High pressure that is currently over the Tennessee River Valley will continue to build into the northern Mid-Atlantic, but not before a cold front that is currently over the Great Lakes moves through the region this evening. Let's take a look at the latest radar picture. As we can see on the radar, we do have a disturbance that is moving through central and western Pennsylvania and central New York. This disturbance is producing scattered showers. Now, most locations will remain dry, but the locations that are impacted by these scattered showers, especially northeastern Pennsylvania, the Hudson Valley, northwestern New Jersey, will see visibility drop between 4 to 6 standard miles under brief heavy downpours, if any. But for the most part, like I said, most locations will barely notice the rainfall. And in fact, the biggest impact from this disturbance will be the increase in clouds that are occurring this afternoon and should be expected through this evening. Behind this cold front, temperatures cool down a little bit more. Today we got into the lower 50s. Tomorrow we'll struggle in the mid to upper 40s. So we have a colder air mass coming in from Canada, a polar air mass, but overall not a huge impact on the northern Mid-Atlantic. Now for the rest of this week, into this week, and into the early portions of next week, generally the region will be under the influence of high pressure from the Mississippi and from the Tennessee River valleys. As a result, most locations will remain dry and generally near normal for temperatures. A few of these disturbances, like today's disturbance, will swing through and every so often keep temperatures a little bit cooler in the upper 40s to lower 50s, but overall, most locations will remain near normal for temperatures with dry conditions all the way through Tuesday. Now, Wednesday, things get a little bit more interesting. Let's take a look at the latest European model guidance from the Penn State EWAL. This is the 500 millibar map on Thursday morning, which is Thanksgiving morning. Now, ahead of this period, high pressure will shift off the coast and will warm up into the lower 60s on Wednesday. An Arctic cold front will approach the northern Mid-Atlantic, and on Thursday morning, that cold front will stall around the northern Mid-Atlantic. The cold front will then transition to a warm front because a stronger disturbance that's over the southern plains will move into the Mississippi River Valley and eventually towards the Great Lakes. Now, notice the upper level trough that is currently over the Canadian Maritimes. That upper level low and that upper level trough is the beginning stages of what we call a negative NAO, a negative North Atlantic oscillation. And that's a very important feature because a negative NAO causes storms to slow down and redevelop towards the Mid-Atlantic coast, which in the winter, when we move deeper in the winter, can produce some complicated forecasting situations with rain changing to snow or snow changing to rain or a mix of rain and snow or heavy snow. Overall, without this feature, it's really difficult to get a winter storm. And it's rather interesting. We're seeing this feature develop already. We've seen it all through the fall, and once again, we're seeing it into the late fall, into the early winter now. And later on, I'll show how powerful this block gets. But for Thanksgiving, this storm that develops over the Mississippi River Valley will move towards the Great Lakes. Now let's take a look at the surface map. On Thanksgiving, the low pressure center on the European model guidance is moving towards the Great Lakes. We start to see redevelopment towards the Mid-Atlantic coast. The northern Mid-Atlantic, New York City and Philadelphia will remain north of a warm front, but that warm front will produce periods of heavy rain, so Thursday is looking rather wet. However, as this storm redevelops towards the coast, some colder air is going to be able to work in towards the coast and change some of that rain over to some snow at the very end of the storm over the interior locations like northeastern Pennsylvania and the Hudson Valley. However, most locations can expect a rather wet and stormy Thanksgiving for the northern Mid-Atlantic. And here we have, by Friday morning, the whole trough shifts east we start to get a redevelopment and reintensification of the negative NAO pattern as the storm lifts north. And the result? Well, take a look at the cold air mass at 850 millibars. The cold air just rushes in. We're looking at 850 millibar temperatures falling below minus 10 degrees Celsius, which is rather impressive for this time of year. If you're around the Great Lakes, let's say Syracuse, New York, Buffalo, New York, watch out for the day after Thanksgiving, because with your leftover turkey is going to be the potential for some strong lake effect snow. So keep an eye out for that. As for the northern mid-Atlantic, the rain departs, a few scattered snow showers are lingering, and temperatures are going to struggle to hit 40 degrees by Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of next week. This is not going to be an air mass to mess around with. This is going to be a true polar air mass, one of the first ones to actually keep temperatures below 40 degrees for the first time this winter. And because it's the first polar air mass of this type, potentially you could say in some respects an Arctic air mass if you move further north into New England and towards the northern plains and the Great Lakes. But overall, this is the first real shot of cold air for the northern mid-Atlantic. So while temperatures clearly are going to be rather cold at 850 millibars, if this was happening later on in the year, more towards late December than late November, the impacts of this cold air mass would be more drastic. But in this case right now, it brings in our first true polar air mass and really knocks the temperatures down after Thanksgiving. Now I just want to step back just for a moment to take a look at days 8 through 10 on the European and the GFS model guidance. Normally when you kind of take out the short waves and just look at the overall pattern, you kind of see where the atmosphere is going. And basically what we're seeing is the strongest block on the throughout the northern hemisphere is clearly going to be the negative NAO block. When you see a huge ridge that's cutting through Greenland and entering the northern territories of Canada, that is an impressive negative NAO block that can keep conditions very chilly for much of the northern mid-Atlantic and England and possibly even as far south as Washington, D.C. For a nice period of time, at least through the end of the month and into possibly early portions of December. One other thing to point out too is that models tend to break down these blocks a little bit too fast. So any model guys that start suggesting that this negative NAO block is going to just start to collapse quickly, I would temper that thought just a little bit. Usually when a block gets this strong, it tends to stick around for some time, and it repeats later on. Well, like around late December. Something to think about later on as we move into December. So after a break throughout this weekend and into early next week, the weather pattern gets very active for Thanksgiving and beyond. Thank you for trusting in NYNJPA Weather as your weather source for the northern mid-Atlantic. I'm meteorologist Stephen DiMartino. Have a great day.